why it's important to you, any kind of incentives you've got lined up, like those challenges I talked about before. Remind them that you take credit cards. Not that we want to get into credit card debt, but they might be able to spare a few dollars on a credit card and that actually online donations are preferred. So make sure they understand that. Ask them, if they really, really cannot give you any money at all, ask if they'd be willing to help spread the word by sharing something on Facebook or talking to their friends or family and see if they can donate. You can certainly ask for their time and effort in lieu of cash, so that's an option. And also, just a side note, if they only have cash, you can take that cash, but then go make an equivalent donation online. You want to emphasize to people that online donations really are preferred, but if it really comes down to it, someone only has cash, then that's how you can do that. Linda, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that with the mechanics.
Yep, absolutely. And that is something that our campus kitchens have done in the past, and I'll have a few of them who I think at least have done that to speak up at the end about ways that they've made that happen. So all of the donations that count for Raise the Dough have to be made online through Razoo, but that doesn't mean that you can't collect cash on your campus.
So if someone has $1 or $2, that's something you can do. Okay, so to the next section, I'm going to talk specifically about how to maximize social media with this, and this is really more my bailiwick. Oh, and actually before I get to this, I will say from my own personal fundraising experience, people are more willing to donate when there's an event involved. When I was raising money for the nonprofit RAIN a few years ago, I was doing this, I pledged to walk 1,000,000 steps in, I think it was 100 days, and people pledged money for that. But the real ways that I was able to raise money was by doing individual fundraising events. So you might have some kind of event that would get people out and get them excited about things as well. Again, and you might even set up a laptop with Wi-Fi where people could donate. That would be great. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so social media specifically. It is probably good etiquette to warn your followers on whatever networks you're on ahead of time that, hey, I'm going to be posting about this a lot for the next, few weeks or however long it goes, just to give them a heads up. It's just good form because that way, people can't get super mad at you when you do post about it a lot because you told them, hey, I warned you. And you do want to, because you do want to tell people several times. There is an old adage in marketing that you have to tell someone something 7 times before they're going to take action on it. So they have to see the same message over and over and over again. Unfortunately, this is just how the human brain works, so bear that in mind. Just by telling people once, it's not going to sink in. They're not going to take action. You have to keep telling them as much as possible. And remember to use every social network you're on. If you're on Tumblr, use that. If you're on Twitter, use that. If you're on Facebook, whatever you're using, include links to donate. And again, tell that story. Say it personally. It's great to use, Campus Kitchens, I'm sure, has some really great stuff for you to use in terms of template social media posts. Use those by all means, but also come up with your own and think about why this issue is important to you. And make sure that people know when they can donate, like when day 1 is happening. Start getting energy built up ahead of time, but then be like, okay, today's the day, start donating. We only have this much time. And yes, and don't forget to use the hashtag, which I think, is it Raising the Dough is the hashtag, Linda?
Raise Dough.
Raise Dough. Hashtag Raise Dough. So be sure to use that. Use photos as much as possible. Generally, photos they're stickier on social media. There's really no better way to say that. Photos get people's attention. If you're scrolling through Facebook on your phone, for example, and someone posts a photo, it kind of takes up the whole screen, whereas a text post just takes up a little bit. So photos are a great way to get attention, and as much as you can, show people getting energized and excited about the campaign. You can also have holding signs with text on it. You might have seen on Tumblr, because hashtag campaign. This could be like, I donated to Campus Kitchens because, or something like that, so people can tell their stories as well. Make every update different. Don't say the same thing over and over. Don't just cut and paste every single time. People are going to tune that out. Again, use photos, try some top 10 lists, maybe a...
Oh, Annie, you are cutting out. All right, I think you may have lost her. Give me one sec. All right. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what happened to Annie. Let me let her know that we can't.
What you have left to raise.
Hey, Annie.
Oops.
You cut out there
Yeah.
for a couple minutes. So can you go back to always include a link to donate?
Yes, yes,
Thank
sorry
you.
about that.
Okay.
So always include a link to donate even if you post a photo. Be sure to include a link to donate in the caption of that photo. So people always have just one click and they don't have to hunt through other updates to find the link. All right, still good?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. Let people know about the progress of the campaign. Every day, give them an update. We've raised this much. Here's how we stand. We're in 3rd place or 2nd place or whatever. How much you're hoping to raise, and just generally how the competition is doing. Maybe give them a different tip every day for how they can be involved. Like today, tell your sister if you've got a sister about this, or today, tell your parents, or tell your best friend about this today. Give people assignments, even if they've donated already.
And then I would emphasize what Annie just said, that if you're participating in Raise the Dough, but aren't aiming to win, aren't aiming to raise several $1,000s, that's totally cool. But what I would recommend is coming up with your goal amount that you'd like to raise, the amount that you think you guys can do, and the amount that you need, and push people towards that. So maybe your incentive isn't exactly, we're in 3rd, so let's get to 1st, but we have 3 days to raise $3,000. I'll get there.
Absolutely. I've also seen things go well, like we need to get this much money by the end of today to be on track.
Okay.
Really, really give it that kind of urgency. Again, post flyers. Don't forget about physical media, and even bring flyers when you're going to class, parties, depending on what your campus's rules are for that kind of thing. They may have rules against campaigning, I guess. It's campaigning, sort of, fundraising. Be savvy to that, but also think of all the different places you go where you could promote this. Maybe you can even post flyers in local businesses. Whatever you're able to do to get the word out, think about what you can do with physical media. Definitely don't forget the power of in-person asks. Social media is great, and it's a great way to get the word out to a lot of people really quickly, but it's also a lot easier to ignore than a friend you're having lunch with, or someone who calls or texts you personally with an ask that's catered to them. Same thing goes with maybe distant relatives and things. You can send them a letter. That's another way that I really was able to raise a lot for my fundraising campaign, was I sent individual letters to people that were personalized. It wasn't a form letter that everybody received. It was, hey, how's Cousin Kenny doing? Here's what I'm trying to do. And that really was able to turn out a lot of donations. And finally, tailor your asks. I've alluded to this before, but when you're asking someone in person to donate to your campaign, or maybe in a personalized email or text, think ahead of time about who they are, what they're passionate about, why this might be important to them, and weave that into your request. This is something at SmallAct that we talk about a lot, because one of the things we do is software that helps nonprofits get more information about their donors, so that when they call them, they're not asking or saying the same exact script every time. They're able to customize it just enough where they're connecting it with what that person is passionate about. So for example, if it were an animal shelter, knowing if the person on their list has a dog or a cat or both, they can say, hey, we've got a lot of dogs in need or a lot of cats in need, and connect with what that person is most passionate about. That's just one example. But just bear that in mind and try to tailor your asks as much as possible, and that's going to help you be more successful. And I think that wraps up my section, Linda, so I'm going to toss it back to you.
Awesome. And if you can hang out, we'll have an opportunity to ask both myself and Annie any questions in just a couple minutes.
Absolutely.
Something else I did want to say that I didn't say when I introduced Annie is that she also blogs for Small Act. I don't think she's the only one, but she blogs a lot. And so if social media, online engagement is your cup of tea, it happens to be mine. I get that it's not everyone's. Some of her blog posts have been really interesting when I was looking at their website. So Google Small Act and check it out if you're interested. All right, so just a little more specific about social media for Raise the Dough, and anyone who's participating, you'll get all of this in much finer detail when you decide to participate. But as Annie said, and I said, the hashtag that we use is Raise Dough, and you can use this on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, Instagram, pretty much anything. That'll help me see everyone who's talking about Raise the Dough and share it. Right now, if you've been paying any attention to our Twitter page, like I said, we have this online grant competition going on for schools that want to start a campus kitchen. And any tweets that I see about it, I just share. Impartially, I've been featuring one of them each day, but I'm happy to share in that situation and in the situation of Raise the Dough. If anyone's tweeting all the time about, hey, help this campus kitchen out, I'll retweet. I'm an equal opportunity retweeter. So that just helps everyone see what's going on social media. Another recommendation is to prepare sample posts for the groups you'd like to support you. So like Annie said, reaching out to those alumni groups, or maybe your Campus Kitchen sponsoring office, or classes that provide you volunteers a lot. Preparing them, as I will do for you all. You can probably repurpose some of what I send and send it off to them, so that it's easier for them to sort of cut and paste and post about it, instead of having for them to think up original content about what to say about your fundraiser. And then this bit.ly link, bit.ly/raisedough, is the team page that I showed you, which just has those 5 schools on it now. So that's a great page to direct people to in the very beginning when they're wondering what this Raise the Dough competition is, and then afterwards you can direct people to your individual page. But again, us in the national office will be directing people to that team page. And then real quick, I want to go over the timeline for Raise the Dough. So the MOUs are due by Friday, February the 7th, and you can send them to either me or your program manager because they will get them right to me. But if you're going to participate, the MOU is due no later than that day. If you think you're going to have an issue with that day, you can ask me about it, but we'd really like them in then. Monday, February 10th, by the end of that day, I will have created all of the RASU pages. I want to note that my goal will be to make the page the day that I receive your MOU. I'm not going to promise it for that Friday in case I get a whole bunch on that day, but if you submit your MOU earlier, I'll make your Raise the Dough page earlier, and then you'll have access to it to edit it earlier. That doesn't mean you can fundraise earlier because we're all fundraising in the same amount of time, but you'll have more time to sort of personalize it if you're interested. Later that week, on Thursday the 13th, I'll be hosting an office hour from 3 to 4 Eastern Time to answer any questions you have about the fundraiser, or maybe more specifically about personalizing your RASU page, anything you need to know. And then we'll have another one again the next week on Wednesday. And I'll be sending out this timeline again, so you don't need to memorize it right this second. And that's our basic timeline leading up to the competition starting February 21st. Which is a Friday. You'll note that it's going from Friday to Friday again this year. One more thing I want to say is I should have clarified earlier that when it comes to the prizes, each campus kitchen can only win one. So if you are the top fundraiser and have the largest number of donors, you'll only receive whichever award is greater. So in that scenario, you'd receive the $1,000 most fundraised prize, and then the school with the second number of most donors would receive the most donor prize. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so at this point, I'm unmuting everyone. And this is a great opportunity to ask questions of me or Annie. I'd also love it if some campus kitchens who have been really successful in the past could maybe share some of their best practices or ideas. And then if we've got any campus kitchens on the call, because I know we have a few that are getting a little aggressive already about Raise the Dough that like to challenge each other, I'd love to hear those also. So maybe I will call out Tammy from Gettysburg. Are you on the call?
I am, yes.
Would you mind talking a little bit about how you all have been successful?
I think the biggest part for us is just keeping records from year to year. and then expanding on that. So we reach out with personal notes or emails to people who have donated in the past. We also reach out to all of our volunteers in the kitchen and anybody who has helped make our campus kitchen successful. But we send them out. We have 3 student coordinators here in the office, and we kind of divide and conquer. So that's, I think, the biggest thing for us is just that personal touch and reaching out with personal email or having them go around campus and personally saying that you've done this in the past. Can you match or beat that for this year?
Awesome. That's great. That goes along with a lot of what Andy was saying. Is there anyone here who has done a great event that helped them with Raise the Dough somehow?
Campus Kitchen in Washington, D.C., probably our 2 most successful events was a pancake breakfast. The supplies were not expensive, and it got us a lot of people in our building. We put up signs on the street, and we raised over $1,500 in a few hours.
And how did you raise that money? Did you charge admission and then make a corresponding donation, or did you have people donate on the spot?
We had both. We had a laptop, and then we also we took the cash. Some people would prefer to give cash for whatever reason, and we took those, and someone took the money and wrote a check.
Awesome.
And we didn't. We just said we thought we did better if we didn't charge a certain amount, and that we just said, here's what we're doing. We're raising money, because then people were given $20 and $50 instead of what you would get. And we also had some homeless people that we didn't charge at all. But I think that helped us because it showed what we do. Mm-hmm. We had a combination of some people from the community that could pay and some that couldn't pay, and people like to eat, so it was fairly successful.
Awesome, thanks, David. And David is from the Campus Kitchen at Washington, D.C., who is our incoming champion, and may or may not be the one to beat again this year.
Excuse me?
I said you may or may not be the one to beat again this year.
I think may is the better word.
All right, anyone have any questions about anything Raise the Dough or Razoo related?
Linda, I've forgotten. Is there a minimum amount online of donation?
I think last year was 10, right?
Yes. I think you're right. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second so I can look that up. That's a great question. Anyone else while I'm doing that? Yes, the minimum donation is $10. So that is something that I think that you all pushed last year, and something that we pushed nationally is because 10 is the minimum donation, really encouraging students to just, saying that $10 is a great donation. In fact, you could even make that donation better by trying to get 5 friends to also donate $10. Because, like I said, you do have that prize for largest number of donors, not just largest amount won. Someone saying something? Steve, if you're saying something, I can't hear you at all. So if you want to type anything in the chat box, I'll be sure to read it out loud. I do have a question in the chat box that says, can you repeat what we should do if someone only has cash? It's a great question, or request. And the answer is, well, actually, let me have Campus Kitchens who have dealt with this answer. What has been the best way to deal with that in your guys' experience?
Gave the cash to someone who was then able to donate that exact amount
with their
in their
card?
name.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I would recommend giving it to, having someone maybe on your LT or your advisor or someone like that do it, someone who is a responsible representative of your Campus Kitchen so that there are no issues. And do make sure that you document that is what I would also say.
Yeah, we had one designated person who did it for all.
Awesome.
I also just wanted to say, last year was our first year, and we did not join with any idea of winning. We just wanted to have a project for our leadership team because we were a new campus kitchen, and then sort of the momentum sort of took off from there. And we didn't decide to join as a leadership team except probably a week before. We debated a lot whether or not we had the bandwidth, but it was something that really rallied us all together, and the competition made it fun for us, and so we really put out that week.
Awesome. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll let you all free. As always, you can email me any questions. I will be emailing all of you tomorrow morning with the MOU for this year. It is the same document as last year, except for it is updated with this year's dates, essentially. So you can look that over. I went over the basic outline of what you're agreeing to. If you have any questions, you can let me know, but I'll be sending that to you tomorrow morning. The last thing I wanted to share with you all real quick while I have you is this grant competition I keep talking about. And I'm hoping that you've seen it or heard about it, but I just want to tell you about it because it's something really cool that we're doing as a network to bring some other people into our group. We have 7 schools right now competing for $5,000 grants sponsored by Sodexo Foundation, one of our founding partners, to open a campus kitchen by the end of this year. So by the end of 2014, there will be 5 more of us, which will be totally cool. So each of these kitchens have submitted a video about why they want to bring our program to their community, to their campus. So I would just encourage you to go to this. You can just go to our website, and it's the first thing that pops up on that moving banner. It's also campuskitchens.org/videos with an S. And you can watch the videos. Maybe some of these schools are in the same state as you or close to you that you want to vote for to have some camaraderie in your area, or not, whatever. And if you would like to share it with your networks, that would be great. It's been really fun, and we have had hundreds and hundreds of tweets and Facebook posts about it. As you can see, it has thousands of votes. And so this is something that we're hoping to facilitate with you all on some scale for Raise the Dough. So anyway, just a little plug for something really cool that we have going on as a network, and we'd love for you all to support our soon-to-be campus kitchens in this. All right, so one more thanks to Annie. Thank you so much for joining us and presenting your online fundraising knowledge. And if you have any questions, you can stay on the line. Otherwise, I will email you all tomorrow, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, thanks. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.